Hi, I'm Aurelia, and my chosen topic that I'll be talking to you about is the lexical decision task and how it affects dyslexics. So let's start with what is the lexical decision task. The lexical decision task aims to examine word identification. Some of the known factors are length, spelling, regularity, word frequencies, and many more. This helps us understand one way of how humans cognize language and how it transmits into memory. This task shows us the more nuanced areas, especially with phonetical understanding, reading, writing, etc. This task starts with participants seated in front of the stimuli, commonly a computer. The stimuli then consists of a string of letters, which is either a real or fake word. The participants are then asked to press one of the two keys, corresponding with if the word is real or is not real. Before, I mentioned how the lexical decision task helps examine the process such as phonetics. Dyslexia is a neurological disorder affecting the individual's ability to succeed with phonetics, reading, fluency, writing, language, etc. This makes the lexical decision task extremely useful when looking at the differences between dyslexia and individuals without dyslexia. While this already may seem interesting, the true importance must be discussed. As a dyslexic myself, I've always been seen as stupid or dumb because of my struggles with written language. But studies like this prove that dyslexia does not make you stupid, it just means that you're better at different things. Additionally, it shows us how dyslexic brains are just inherently wired differently to a neurotypical person's. It helps us understand the different cognitive patterns and neuromechanisms underlying dyslexia, which then allows us for better informed intervention practices, enabling dyslexic to perform better and truly unlock their academic potential. This study in particular was a mixed design comparing individuals with dyslexia and without dyslexia on the lexical decision task. Participants first completed a standardized cognition assessments such as the phonological awareness test, the reading competence test, and the Welsh's IQ intelligence scale. This experiment consisted of 550 trials with 180 regular words, 180 quasi words, and 180 pseudo words. Then they completed the lexical decision task, which I briefly described before. While completing this task, the brain activity was recorded using an EEG to be able to measure the event-related potentials associated with language processing. The studies examined behavior measures including accuracy, reaction time, omissions, neuroresponses, and focusing on the brain's activity with events-related potentials, or ERPs. Components such as P100 in the occipital lobe, N170, the occipital lobe, the N400, the parietal lobe, and the P600, central parietal lobe, was measured across both hemispheres. The results showed while dyslexic performed significantly worse on the reading and writing and phonetical understanding, they did not score significantly lower on intelligence. In the lexical decision task, the dyslexic group had a lower accuracy, slower reaction times, and more omissions, particularly with the pseudo words and quasi words, indicating that difficulties with unfamiliar or phonologically complex language. The EEG's results showed that there were significant differences in the brain activity between both hemispheric processing between both groups. The non-dyslexic group showed a stronger left hemispheric activation, whereas the dyslexic group showed a more atypical right hemispheric processing, possibly explaining why a lot of dyslexic have problems with written language. Additionally, the brain signals involved with the recognizing the words and understanding meaning were different between groups, which indicates that language is processed completely different in individuals with dyslexia. While this really helps us understand the innate differences between dyslexic brains and non-dyslexic brains, there are a couple limitations that must be considered. One major limitation of the study is how IQ was measured. It was done using a regular IQ calculator, which is formatted for a neurotypical brain, i.e., they're using regular written language, creating barriers for dyslexics to succeed. There's also a risk of practice effect or fatigue due to the number of trials conducted. This may have skewed the results and created outliers, making the risk of type 1 or type 2 errors higher. However, with the limitations in mind, this study does give us key information understanding how dyslexic brains work differently to a neurotypical person's, and particular one major factor being which side of the brain is used. This also helps us examine why dyslexic on average are more creative and better at problem solving. Thank you so much for listening. And here we quickly have the main reference by Silver and then the image acknowledgements.